You don't. So I was surfing the web the other day, and I came across a question, and I was looking at it, and I thought to myself, well, that is the dumbest fucking question I've ever read in my entire life. But the more I look at it, like, the more it kind of makes sense to me, like, why people would have this kind of question. Somebody was asking about how to retake sites with an op, and I was thinking, why the fuck is that even a question that should be addressed? Because obviously, this isn't CSGO. It's not something that you should really feasibly be doing in this game. But there are situations where you have to do it. I found myself in those situations recently, actually, a couple of times as I've been playing, and I randomly have an op for some goddamn reason. I probably scrounged it off a dead player. And I have to go into site and retake with an op, and there's no weapons around. Now, I'm going to break this up into two parts. One is going to be retaking with an op with teammates, and that is much, much easier to do. And also retaking when it's just you and you have an op, and that is much, much harder. Because the problem with the op in this game is it doesn't behave anything like the CS op. You can't use it aggressively at all. You can't really walk around corners and shoot like this nearly as effectively as you could in CSGO. And the scope and time is crazy, and the accuracy recovery rate is very, very slow. So, if it's more than a 1v2, you definitely want to drop the op. If possible, maybe even use your pistol and try and find a frag. But I'm going to basically walk through some ways you can go about doing this. I will say though, almost in every instance that you are retaking with an op, you are almost always going to want to drop it for a rifle. Almost always, right? Because you're going to want to be able to be on your teammate's back, ready to trade them out when they go down because they're probably terrible. So, if you happen to have an op and there's no rifles around, what you can do, and is probably one of the best ways to play this situation, is you can post up on an angle so your teammate can actually walk out. So you can cover for your teammate, right? Let's say it's only you and one other teammate alive. What you can do is you can be like, hey, I'm posting up sidewalk, walk out. And then you can start covering B main, and you can kind of like hold in between these angles and wait for your teammate to go out. If you have a decent enough reaction time, you should be able to hit either of these shots pretty realistically, right? If not, you can always just hold B tons if you suspect there's one B tons and let your teammate walk out and get to sidewalk. Once he's in sidewalk, you can start moving up and you can start posting up on a different angle, right? You can move over, you can hold back sight, and you can just kind of just keep posting up on different separate angles. That's really all you can do in this situation. So posting up is probably the best way you can play this situation. There are many ways you can do it, whether it be just kind of running in like this, holding this angle, and then actually getting to a much more aggressive spot so you can cut the sight in half for your teammate to actually watch. All you are doing is covering one specific spot and just posting up on it so you can cut down that area so your teammate doesn't even have to worry about it. If you have utilities such as smokes, go ahead and use them, and then basically just cut the sight in half. So all he really has to worry about is these close angles here and maybe box. Now, if you're retaking solo with an op and you have absolutely no way to get a rifle, like you've expanded, you've looked through all your options, you've looked under every single rock, every single crevice trying to find the weapon, and you cannot find one, and you are stuck high and dry with an op, what you can do is play passive. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to like just wait the entire round, right? But the way that you kind of have to play this is you have to play it smart and you have to wait for the enemy team to make it. For instance, let's say you're retaking from B tunnels, right? You want to post up here, check it, post up on the next angle, check it, and then start moving your way up to get to the point where you think you know where somebody is at. Let's say you know there is somebody deep in these tunnels and he doesn't know you have an op. That's probably the best this situation can get, right? You don't want to let the enemy team know that you have an op until you take your first shot and actually attempt to kill somebody. Because once they have that op, they're going to play a lot more scared. They're going to play a lot more safe until they hear you drop it. So once you get to this angle, you want to kind of just hold this, right? Just be aware that obviously time's not on your side. You should have enough time for one of the enemy players to over peek because they want to check an angle, because people will get impatient. It happens all the time. I get impatient when I'm sitting in this back cubby. I want to check sidewalk and make sure they're not walking up on my teammate that's playing like green boxes right here, or maybe even like sidewalk, right? So it's going to happen. Somebody's going to get impatient and you should be able to get a free pick here. And once you get that, it's all about just getting a little bit more aggressive and starting to clear out this site, because once you have that first pick, all you really need to do is tap the bomb and then hold for the next kill. That's all you have to do. That's in the instance that it's a 1v2, right? In a 1v1, it should be fairly easy for you to actually win the 1v1 if you are decent enough and if you don't expose that you have an op. So one thing you can do if the enemy team knows you have an op is you can post up on an angle, right? They figure out you have an op, you can drop it and pick it back up. That'll kind of simulate you picking up a different weapon if you just drop it like this. Because they're going to be like, okay, he switched to a fucking Vandal. I might be able to take this 1v1 now. And then you can just go back to playing the same bitch-made way you were playing before. And you can kind of just hold an angle. Honestly, if you're using an op and you're retaking, simply put, don't do it. It really is not good. Especially alone, you will get overwhelmed so quick because the amount of time it takes to recover and actually be able to take the next shot, you will almost definitely be traded almost every single time unless you are in the best and most advantageous position you can possibly be in. Same goes for even in like a 2v1, right? You don't want to have an op because it makes it much more difficult to actually run in with your teammate and trade, especially on a close-ass map like this. The reason it's difficult is because when you are running in with your teammate, right, it's kind of hard to just post up on an angle because you get tunneled and you can't really see where he's coming from. That makes it a lot harder to actually trade. So that's why it is best to have a Vandal in these situations. So Vandal or Phantom or just a rifle in general in these situations, just because if your teammate runs in, you're able to actually push in with him and you're able to actually have his back, and say he dies, you're able to instantly follow up and get the trade kill and defuse the bomb. So that's why it's more important to have a rifle in retake situations, but it is still winnable if you have an op. You don't always have to save when you have an op. If you have good economy, I'd say go for it, given the circumstance that the enemy team has very poor economy, right? It doesn't really matter if you're giving the enemy T side an op. It does matter, but not nearly as much as if you were to give it to a defending side, right? Because the op is meant for holding angles, and it's just not going to be as good on T side. Yes, they can get a free pick with it if they play it right, but generally, it's not as big of a deal as players make it out to be. So yeah, that's about all I wanted to say on the matter. I just saw it on the internet, and I wanted to make a quick video on it. Just giving my personal opinions and my personal take on the matter, because apparently it was a big question that people had. So yeah, see you guys later. Fall into the bliss, the oblivion. Right into the night on my bike, and then when I'm gone, I just let it run around, singing to the microphone. Take away my stress, no mess, no vacation on. This is no sweat, flying no private jet. Hoping I'm going out wrecked, just